Where's not the gun then?
Ma'am, you need to see this evidence. It's critical to the case.
The attorney's polished shoes clicked against marble as he walked away from the defense table. Away from the case, away from her. Elena Hartwell sat frozen, watching her last line of defense abandon her in front of 200 witnesses, a dozen cameras, and a judge whose gavel was already half raised. The prosecutor's smirk widened. He adjusted his tie with the casual confidence of a man who knew he'd already won Ms. Hartwell. The judge's voice sliced through the murmurs, rippling across the gallery. "Do you have representation, or shall we proceed to judgment?" Elena opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her hands trembled against the mahogany table, the same table where 3 days ago her $1-million legal team had sat shoulder to shoulder, promising her vindication. Now she sat alone, drowning in silken shame. Whispers crawled through the room like wildfire. Reporters leaned forward, pens flying. Employees she'd promoted, mentored, trusted. They watched from the back rows with expressions she couldn't read. Pity, satisfaction. She couldn't tell anymore. In the far corner, nearly invisible behind a yellow mop bucket, Marcus Webb paused mid-stroke. He'd cleaned this courthouse for 27 years, mopped up spilled coffee, broken dreams, the aftermath of justice and its failures. He'd learned to be invisible, to watch without being seen. But he saw her now. Not the billionaire, not the CEO whose face had graced magazine covers and penthouse galas. He saw something else in her eyes, something he recognized from 1,000 other faces that had sat in that chair. Not arrogance, not even guilt, terror, raw and absolute. The prosecutor rose, buttoning his jacket with theatrical precision. "Your Honor, given the defendant's clear inability to mount a defense." "I move for immediate." The clatter cut him off mid-sentence. Marcus's mop hit the floor, the wooden handle echoing like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Every head turned. 200 pairs of eyes found the janitor in the back corner. His worn uniform, a shock of faded blue against the court's polished elegance, he walked down the aisle. Each step deliberate, each step impossible, Your Honor. His voice was rough, weathered by decades of silence and cigarettes. He'd quit 10 years too late, but it was steady, unshakable. "We'll defend her." The courtroom exploded. The gavel cracked like thunder, once, twice, 3 times before the chaos dimmed to frantic whispers and the frenzied scratching of pens. "Mr. Webb," the judge's voice carried the weight of 4 decades on the bench. "You are a courthouse janitor. This is a multi-million-dollar fraud case involving offshore accounts, shell corporations, and financial instruments most attorneys spend years learning to understand." Marcus stood in the aisle, weathered hands steady at his sides. "I'm aware, Your Honor. What the courtroom didn't know what nobody knew because nobody asked. Because nobody saw him was that Marcus Webb had stood in this very room 15 years ago, wearing a $2,000 suit. He'd been one of the best corporate attorneys in the state, the kind of lawyer billionaires fought over, until the day a client asked him to bury evidence of environmental violations that had poisoned a town's water supply. He'd said no. They'd destroyed him for it. Disbarred on manufactured ethics violations. Divorced when his wife couldn't handle the shame of a husband who cleaned toilets instead of boardrooms. He'd lost his home, his reputation, his name. But he'd kept one thing, his mind. "Your Honor," Marcus continued, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man with nothing left to lose, "I still have my legal knowledge. I simply don't have my license." Elena turned fully in her chair, seeing him for the first time. Had he always been there? Had she walked past him 1,000 times in her own office building, too important to notice the man who emptied her trash? The prosecutor shot to his feet. "This is absurd. A janitor playing dress-up doesn't constitute legal representation. This woman is facing 15 years in federal prison, and the court is entertaining this circus." The judge studied Marcus with narrowed eyes. Something flickered their recognition, perhaps, or simply curiosity. "Mr. Webb may serve as a legal advisor. Ms. Hartwell will represent herself, with his ... assistance." He paused. "But one misstep, and this generosity ends." "Understood?" Marcus nodded and moved to the defense table. He didn't sit in the attorney's chair, that would be too much. Instead, he stood beside it, close enough to speak quietly. "Are you guilty?" The question was barely a whisper. Elena's perfectly painted lips parted. She'd expected accusations, judgment, demands, not a simple question asked without malice. "I don't know," her voice cracked. "I trusted the wrong people." Marcus reached across the table, pulling the prosecution's evidence file closer. His eyes moved fast, trained by years of cutting through legal smokescreens. Then he stopped. A single document, third page, bottom corner. The date, it didn't match. He leaned close, his weathered face inches from her perfumed one. "They're not just trying to convict you. Someone set you up." Elena's eyes widened, her breath catching. The betrayal went deeper than she'd imagined, deeper than money. And now she had only a janitor standing. Between her and the truth, the phone's shrill ring shattered the silence at 11:47 p.m. Marcus didn't recognize the number. "Stop." Helping her, the voice was distorted, mechanical, stripped of humanity. "Or you'll lose more than your career this time." The line went dead. Marcus set the phone down and returned to the law books stacked like towers across his tiny studio apartment. He'd kept them all, every statute, every precedent, every rule that once defined his life. They'd survived the divorce, the eviction, the years of humiliation. They were all he had left. And now, someone wanted him to walk away. He turned the page and kept reading. Across the city, Elena stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse, staring at a skyline she'd helped build. 42 floors below, the city glittered with life. Up here, the silence was absolute. Her phone sat on the marble counter, black and still. No calls, no texts. Friends she'd donated millions to, partners she'd made rich, employees she'd mentored, vanished the moment the accusation landed. She'd been an orphan once, sleeping in group homes and borrowing textbooks. She'd clawed her way up with code and ambition, building a tech empire from nothing but late nights and relentless focus. She'd never needed anyone. Now she had no one. At 3:14 a.m., her hand moved before her mind could stop it. She dialed the number on the card Marcus had quietly slipped her. He answered on the first ring. "I don't know how to do this." Her voice cracked, the CEO mask finally shattering. "I don't know how to be... helpless." Marcus was quiet for a moment. 15 years ago, I had everything. Then I lost it in 6 months. Wife, career, home? I learned something, though you're only helpless if you stop fighting. She exhaled, something loosening in her chest. "Why are you helping me?" "Because someone should have helped me." They worked through the night, two broken people connected by a phone line and desperation. By dawn, they'd founded a pattern in the transactions. Money flowing through shell companies, all traced back to one man, Richard Townsend, her CFO, the man she'd trusted with everything. But Richard wasn't working alone. His lawyer was the prosecutor's former partner. The judge had received campaign donations from Richard's family trust. The corruption ran deep. "We need the original records," Marcus said, his voice grim. "Everything else is circumstantial." Elena's fingers flew across her laptop. "Richard keeps everything in a safe deposit box. Old school, paranoid. Can you access it? I'm a cosigner. He never removed me." Hope flickered, fragile but real. The courtroom buzzed the next morning as they entered. Then Elena stopped cold. Richard Townsend stood by the prosecution table, perfectly tailored suit, perfectly white smile. In his hands, a stack of charred, blackened papers. "Waiting for these?" His voice dripped with mock sympathy. "Evidence has a way of disappearing, especially in warehouse fires." The prosecutor stepped forward, confidence radiating. "Your Honor, without evidence to support Ms. Hartwell's conspiracy theory, I move to close this case and proceed to sentencing." Marcus felt Elena sway beside him. They had nothing. Cameras swarmed like locusts as Marcus pushed through the courthouse doors, Elena close behind. Microphones thrust forward, voices overlapping in a cacophony of judgment. One reporter broke through, shoving a microphone inches from Marcus's weathered face. "Mr. Webb, why would a janitor throw away his life for a billionaire?" Marcus kept walking, jaw tight, but the question followed him like a shadow. That night, his phone rang. Not a distorted threat this time, a number he'd memorized years ago, but never called. Never been called from Dad. Sarah's voice hit him like a physical blow. 10 years of silence. "I saw you on the news. Her tone carried the same anger he remembered from their last fight, when she'd told him his principles had destroyed their family. "You're doing it again?" Playing hero. Throwing everything away. Marcus closed his eyes. "Sarah, for what? For some rich woman who wouldn't have looked at you twice before this. You lost Mom. You lost our house. You lost me because you had to be the good guy. And now—" "I didn't lose everything." The words came quietly, born from years of scrubbing floors and searching for meaning. "I lost things, money, status. But I found out who I really am, and I can live with him." Silence stretched across the line. Then softly, "I don't know if I can." The call ended. Elena stood in the doorway of Marcus's apartment, unnoticed. She'd come to discuss strategy. Instead, she'd heard something that cracked the foundation of everything she'd built her life on. Success, empire, victory. What did she value? Really value? She'd never asked the records. Elena's voice was rough. "Richard's paranoid, but he's also a tech executive. There have to be digital backups." Marcus turned, surprised to see her. Then understanding dawned. "Your assistant? The one who Maya Chen fired 3 months ago for performance issues?" Elena's fingers flew across her phone. She was too competent for that to be true. They found Maya in a cramped apartment in Queens, surviving on freelance work and fear. When she opened the door and saw Elena, she nearly slammed it shut. "Please," Elena's voice cracked. "I know Richard did this to you, too." Maya's hand trembled on the doorknob. "I made copies. I knew something was wrong, the way he'd make me delete files, change dates. I kept backups where," Marcus asked gently. "On a drive, hidden." Maya glanced down the hallway nervously. "But they've been watching me. Black SUV, same one, every day for a week." "We have 48 hours, Marcus said. "After that, Elena goes to prison for crimes she didn't commit." Maya's resolve hardened. "Moretti's Diner. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., I'll bring the drive." The diner smelled of burnt coffee and yesterday's grease. Marcus sat across from Elena in a cracked vinyl booth, both watching the door. Every car that passed made Elena flinch. At 7:03, Maya entered, pale, shaking, but alive. She slid into the booth, her hand emerging from her jacket with a small silver drive. "Everything's on here. Dates, transactions, emails between Richard and the window exploded. Glass became shrapnel, showering them in crystalline rain." Marcus threw himself over Elena as the black SUV roared past, tires screaming against asphalt. When the ringing in his ears faded, he heard at Maya's gasping breaths, wet and desperate. Blood spread across her white shirt in a dark, growing bloom dot. The drive was gone from the table, and they had 47 hours left. Asterisk, the hospital's fluorescent lights hummed with the sound of hope dying. 2:47 a.m. Marcus sat rigid in an orange plastic chair, still picking glass from his jacket. Elena had her head in her hands, perfectly manicured fingers tangled in her hair. A detective had come and gone 20 minutes ago. "Random robbery," he'd said. Wrong place, wrong time. His eyes never met theirs when he said it. "Everyone who helps me gets hurt." Elena's voice was hollow, scraped raw. "Your daughter won't talk to you. Maya's in critical condition with a collapsed lung. And for what? Maybe I should just plead guilty. End this before someone else. Don't." Marcus's voice was sharp. "Why not? You heard Sarah. You've already lost everything once for your principles. Why lose it all again for me?" Marcus was quiet. The doubt had been creeping in since the window exploded, since he'd seen Maya's blood on the diner table. Was he repeating the same mistakes? Playing hero while the people around him paid the price? Elena looked up, her face bare of the armor she usually wore. "I knew something was wrong. Months ago, discrepancies in reports, Richard avoiding questions. But I was too proud to admit I'd been fooled, too proud to believe someone could manipulate me." Her voice cracked. "This is my fault." All of it. Something snapped inside Marcus. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against linoleum. "Stop." The word came out harder than he intended. "You're not the victim here because you were fooled. You're the victim because someone committed a crime. And I'm not some tragic hero throwing away my life." He turned to face her fully. "Justice isn't about being perfect. It's not about never being afraid or never doubting. It's about standing up even when you're terrified, even when every logical reason says to walk away. Because if people like us don't stand, then people like Richard win, Every single time. Elena stared at him, something shifting behind her eyes. The broken woman faded. The fighter emerged. "We have 44 hours, she said, voice steadying. "No evidence. No witnesses." "No." Marcus stopped pacing. His eyes went distant, memory clicking into place. "What?" Elena asked. 6 months ago, I was cleaning the prosecutor's office late. Private firm, but he keeps his space there." Marcus's mind raced. He was meeting with someone? They didn't seem janitors are invisible, remember. I heard them arguing about timelines, about coordinating the charges. With who? I saw him leave. It was Richard. Elena's breath caught. That's illegal. Prosecutors can't coordinate with witnesses before. But we can't prove it. My word means nothing. Marcus met her eyes. Unless I go back to the building. I still have keys. I still have my uniform. The night shift supervisor knows me. His jaw set. If the prosecutor's meeting with Richard again, if there's any documentation, any emails left open, any if you get caught, they'll destroy you. Elena grabbed his arm, her grip desperate. Trespassing, breaking and entering. They'll make sure you never. Marcus looked at her steadily, and for the first time since the trial began, he smiled. Not with humor, but with something harder, something earned. They already did that once. He gently removed her hand. But you know what? I'm still here. The janitorial uniform felt like putting on an old skin. Marcus entered the building at 11:34 p.m. Nodding at the security guard who barely looked up from his phone, the cameras tracked his movement through the lobby, down the hall, into the elevator, 42 floors up. In a darkened office, a figure watched the security monitors. A phone emerged, screen glowing in the darkness. One call, that's all it took. Marcus stepped off the elevator, mop bucket rattling, and walked toward his past. He didn't see the shadow detach from the wall behind him. The master key turned silently. Marcus slipped into the prosecutor's office, decades of muscle memory guiding him through the darkness. He knew this room every corner, every filing cabinet, every place someone might carelessly leave something revealing. The desk wasn't locked. Arrogant, typical. Marcus used Elena's backup phone to photograph everything. Emails discussing timing the charges. Meeting notes about controlling the narrative. A draft letter to the judge requesting expedited sentencing. Then the elevator ding echoed down the hallway. Marcus froze. 11:47 p.m. No one should be here. He slid behind the floor-to-ceiling curtains as voices approached. Angry voices? This is getting out of control. Richard's polished composure had cracked. That janitor nearly died in the diner shooting. Maya's in the hospital. The media's asking questions, then we finish it. The prosecutor's voice was ice. We're too deep to back out now. Tomorrow, she's convicted. Case closed. And if Webb presents something, if he's a janitor. A disbarred nobody. Even if he found something, who would believe him? Marcus's hands shook as he held up the phone, recording every word. Richard paced, his shadow crossing the curtain. We fabricated evidence. If that comes out, it won't. We've controlled everything from the start. The judge, the witnesses, the timeline. Elena Hartwell is already convicted in the court of public opinion. Tomorrow just makes it official. Marcus's phone buzzed. Elena's text lit up the screen. Get out. Now, something's wrong. The vibration seemed deafening in the silent office. What was that? Richard's voice went sharp. Marcus didn't wait. He burst from behind the curtain, sprinting for the door. Shouting erupted behind him. Footsteps pounded. He ran through the maze of offices he'd cleaned 1,000 times. Muscle memory saving him as he cut through the break room down the back stairs. His fingers flew across the phone. Send, send, send. The recording uploaded to Elena as he hit the 20th floor. Then hands grabbed him from behind. He went down hard. The phone skittering across polished marble. Richard and the prosecutor stood over him, breathing hard. The prosecutor's expensive shoe came down on the phone, grinding it to pieces. Help! Marcus shouted. Security. The elevator opened. 3 security guards emerged. Marcus felt hope flicker until he saw their faces. Blank, cold. But, gentlemen, we found an intruder. They beat him professionally. Nothing that would show on camera, nothing that would scar. Just pain, radiating through his ribs, his back, his already damaged pride. When Marcus could no longer stand, they dragged him to the basement. A storage room he'd cleaned supplies from for 15 years, the door locked from the outside. Richard's face appeared in the small window, illuminated by emergency lighting. Your little recording won't matter. We'll say it was fabricated, deepfake AI, whatever. His smile was poisonous. And no one will believe a disgraced janitor over a respected prosecutor. The face disappeared. Footsteps faded. Marcus lay on cold concrete, tasting blood. His phone was destroyed. The clock on the wall read 6:14 a.m. Court started at 9 o'clock. Outside the courthouse, Elena stood with the recording clutched in her hand like a weapon. News vans circled like sharks. The recording was damning, clear, undeniable, but her lawyer, her only lawyer, was missing. Without Marcus, she couldn't present evidence. Without him to testify to how he obtained it, any defense attorney would shred its admissibility in seconds. Her phone showed his location from an hour ago. The office building. 20 blocks away, the courthouse steps stretched before her. Safety, compliance, certain conviction without the recording, or she could go back if she missed court. She'd lose by default. 15 years in prison. Everything gone. But Marcus had walked into darkness for her. Elena looked at the courthouse. One last time, then she ran. Elena's fingers trembled as she dialed the number Marcus had whispered to her once. In a moment of broken honesty, Sarah Webb? Who is this? Suspicion laced every word. My name is Elena Hartwell. I need your help. Your father saved me. Now I have to save him. Silence stretched. Then, where is he? Marcus woke to darkness and the taste of copper. His ribs screamed with every breath. The storage room clock glowed 8:23 a.m. 37 minutes until court. He tried the door, locked, tried his voice. Hoarse, damaged. He'd failed. Then footsteps, running multiple sets. Marcus. Elena's voice, sharp with panic. Dad. Another voice, one he hadn't heard in person for 10 years. The lock beeped. Elena's override code sheet built half the security systems in the city. The door flew open. Sarah froze in the doorway, seeing her father bloodied and broken on concrete. Oh God, Dad, no time. Marcus gripped the doorframe, pulling himself up. Pain lanced through his side. Court, we have two. You can barely stand, Elena said. Grabbing his arm, then help me. They ran. The courtroom doors burst open at 9:11 a.m. The judge's gavel was already raised. Every head turned. Marcus stumbled in, supported by Elena on one side and Sarah on the other. Blood stained his torn janitor's uniform. His left eye was swollen shut, but he was moving forward. The courtroom exploded in whispers. Camera flashes lit the room like lightning. Your Honor? Marcus's voice was gravel, but it carried, I have evidence. The prosecutor shot to his feet. Your Honor, this man is over 10 minutes late. The court should sit down. The judge's voice could have frozen fire. His eyes remained on Marcus. Approach. Marcus played the recording. Richard's voice filled the courtroom. We fabricated evidence. The prosecutor's cold reply, we're too deep to back out now. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Your Honor. The prosecutor's composure cracked. This could be fabricated. Deepfake technology, AI manipulation. This proves nothing. The judge looked to Elena Ms. Hartwell. She stepped forward. Not the billionaire CEO, not the polished executive. Just a woman who'd learned what really mattered. Your Honor, I built a company on innovation, on trust, and I failed. Her voice steadied. I trusted the wrong people because I was too proud to admit I could be fooled, too arrogant to see the truth in front of me. She gestured to Marcus. This man, a janitor, I'd never bothered to notice, saw what I was too blind to see. He risked everything, lost everything, to stand for what's right. Not because I deserved it, because it was right. The courtroom sat in absolute silence. The judge turned to the prosecutor. Counselor, why is your voice on this recording discussing fabricated evidence with the alleged embezzler? The prosecutor's face went white. That's taken out of context, a commotion at the back. Richard Townsend bolted for the exit. Bailiffs? The judge's voice cracked like a whip. 2 bailiffs intercepted Richard at the door. He struggled, his polished veneer shattering as they cuffed him. The prosecutor began to sweat. Your Honor, I can explain. I'm waiting. The prosecutor's mouth opened, closed, his carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. Then he reached into his briefcase with shaking hands, pulled out a document. Your Honor, his voice found new strength, the desperate strength of a cornered animal. Before the court considers any of this evidence, it must address how it was obtained. He slid the document to the bench. Security logs show Marcus Webb entered private offices illegally at 11:34 p.m. last night. He used stolen keys to access privileged attorney-client communications. He is, by definition, a criminal. The prosecutor's eyes glinted with malicious triumph. This evidence is inadmissible, Your Honor. Fruit of the poisonous tree, and Mr. Webb should be arrested immediately for breaking and entering. The judge studied the security logs. His face was granite. Marcus felt Sarah's hand tighten on his arm. Everything, every sacrifice, every moment of pain hung on what happened next. The judge looked up. Asterisk. Marcus stood tall, though every breath carved pain through his ribs. Blood still crusted at the corner of his mouth. But his voice was clear. Your Honor, I did break the law, and I'd do it again. The courtroom held its breath. 15 years ago, I lost everything because I followed my conscience. I could have buried evidence, kept my career, kept my family, but I couldn't live with myself. He gestured to the prosecutor, to Richard in handcuffs. Last night, I had a choice. Stay invisible, stay safe, for expose corruption. The law says I should have stayed in my place. But justice, real justice demanded, I refuse to be invisible anymore. His eyes met the judge's. I'm not asking for mercy. Your Honor, I'm asking that the truth be heard before I face consequences for revealing it. Movement in the gallery. Sarah stood, tears streaming down her face. That's my father. Her voice cracked, but held firm. And I'm proud of him. Elena rose beside her. Your Honor, if Marcus faces charges for exposing the truth, then I should face them too. We stand together. Then another voice. The courthouse janitor who'd replaced Marcus on his shift. Marcus helped me when I had nowhere to go. He's a good man, a paralegal. He tutored my son-in-law studies for free, a court clerk. He never forgot our names, never treated us like we were invisible, one by one. The overlooked people of the courthouse, the ones who kept the system running, while lawyers and judges got the glory stood and spoke. The judge's granite expression softened. He picked up his gavel, and the room went silent. I've sat on this bench for 32 years. I've seen evidence fabricated, witnesses bought, justice perverted by those who swore to uphold it. He looked at the prosecutor with disgust. The recording is admissible. Prosecutorial misconduct voids any claim to privileged protection. He nodded to the bailiffs. Take them both into custody. As Richard and the prosecutor were led away, the judge's eyes returned to Marcus. However, the matter of your trespass remains. Elena's new legal team honest lawyers, carefully vetted, stood quickly. Your Honor, we've subpoenaed the building's night security guard. The guard entered, looking uncomfortable in his pressed uniform. Your Honor, I let Mr. Webb in. He had his old keys, said he forgot something. I've known Marcus for 15 years. There was no breaking, no forcing entry. The trespassing charge evaporated like morning fog. The judge's gavel fell one final time. Ms. Hartwell, you're cleared of all charges. Mr. Webb, you're free to go. And both of you, thank you for reminding this court what justice actually looks like. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a different courtroom, not as a janitor, not as a defendant, as a legal advocate. The Hartwell Justice Foundation occupied 3 floors of Elena's building. Free legal defense for those the system overlooked. Marcus ran it, his decades of legal knowledge finally serving its true purpose. Sarah worked beside him, rebuilding their relationship one case at a time. Today's client was a homeless veteran facing eviction. No lawyer, no hope. Marcus knew that feeling. Your Honor, my client served this country for 12 years. He came home with PTSD and no support system. He missed rent because the VA delayed his benefits, a clerical error, not neglect. We have documentation. The judge reviewed the evidence Marcus presented. Thorough, professional, unassailable, case dismissed. And thank you for your service, sir. The veteran's eyes filled with tears. Marcus shook his hand. You're not invisible. Not anymore. In the gallery, Elena watched and smiled. Later, in her office, she sat for an interview. A documentary about the trial, about second chances. Marcus taught me that true wealth isn't measured in money, she said, looking directly at the camera. It's measured in the courage to stand up for what's right, even when you have everything to lose. The most powerful person in the room is often the one everyone overlooks. She paused, her expression earnest. Marcus's story changed my life. If it inspired you, share it. Because somewhere, someone needs to know that it's never too late to be the person you were meant to be. Redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing who you'll be in the present. The camera pulled back, showing the foundation's busy offices through the glass. Former janitor and former billionaire, working side by side, both finally seeing clearly, both finally free.